We had a crazy day in the market today. I was looking at the futures this morning and they were kind of down, not a lot, but it was kind of flat, kind of down. It wasn't like -10, it was probably -80 or whatever. So I just thought, okay, today's going to be the day where it's a shopping day where the market goes down. We look at where we want to get, what we want to get, and we'll just suck up the value that we have and go from there. So as the day went on, it started off just like that. So take a look at the numbers right here. We're down 1,200, 1,400, kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be. And then it took a dip here and went down 2,300. And I was like, all right, this is kind of the day that we figured was going to happen. And then the craziness happened. We had a massive jump. And I think this was because, I'm not sure, but I think this was because the Biden administration basically just started to outline what they call it like the Rescue America Bill, or they have some dumb name for it. I mean, it's actually not a terrible name, to be fair. Um, but it wasn't like the COVID relief bill or whatever. So anyway, it just absolutely jumped up, got all the way up to, where is it at here? 4,900, 48, 4,900. Got up to about the same amount right there. And then we had some profit taking come on. So it basically got down to about $1,000 and settled at about 1,300. So overall good day. So I looked at this and I'm like, I wonder if it's going to be kind of an even across the board day. Because if it is, it's like, all right, well, 1% basically isn't really something that you get super excited about. So it's like, all right, it's better than losing money, but it's not a shopping day either. So I went over here, and one of the things I found was kind of crazy. So number one, we'll go to movement. This is our 1 day movement. Tracks all the stocks 1 day change. We sort it by percentage gain, and we had a couple we're going to look at today. Ebix went down. This is a company that does cybersecurity for the Internet of Things. So think about like if you have a smart refrigerator or other smart devices in your house. They basically do cybersecurity for it. So somebody can't hack into your house and turn in a microphone. I don't even know if refrigerators have microphones if they're smart fridges, but they basically protect you against that type of thing. Plus, it enables them to protect you if you have stuff like, for example, in our house, we have a smart thermometer where it's hooked into our Wi-Fi. It basically, if you hack into the thermometer, technically you could hack into the Wi-Fi, and God knows what you can get from that point. So this went down 40%. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I'm thinking, holy cow, this has been on our watch list. This Ebix stock that we've been wanting to get at, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But it's one that I probably should have got in a little bit earlier, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do with that. Bitcoin went down. This one was interesting. This one went down mainly because of Elon Musk. So Elon Musk and Peter Schiff, who both people you need to listen to. Peter Schiff has some great podcasts online. They got into this basically Twitter debate about whether Bitcoin had a value. And the gist of it, and I definitely encourage you guys to look into it, but the gist of it is Elon Musk basically said, you know, Bitcoin, it might be, it's pretty good, it's a pretty good thing starting to look into it. Peter Schiff basically came out, and this guy is, I'll let you make up your own mind on him. I like the guy. He basically said Bitcoin is nothing. It's a store of value. It's like gold. It's like anything else. It's a store of value, and it really doesn't do anything. And he goes, gold has utility. It's an industrial metal. You can put it in teeth. You can put it in computer chips. You can do a lot of different things with it. And the only reason why it's really expensive is because there's not a lot of it. And Elon Musk was like, yeah, well, Bitcoin, and he's been a big crypto guy. Well, Bitcoin, basically, there's only so much of it. So as more people adopt it, it's basically as the numerator increases over a stagnant or a static denominator, the value goes up. And they went back and forth and back and forth. There was actually kind of an interesting, tug and pull. And Elon Musk basically said, yeah, maybe Bitcoin's a little bit overvalued. And this price just went down. Absolutely just totally went down. And it was based on him. So I'm debating whether I want to get into Bitcoin or not. And this is actually Bitcoin Cash. So if we look into Bitcoin, let's get all the way down here. Bitcoin Cash kind of trails Bitcoin for the most part. So we'll look at Bitcoin, and I'll show you exactly what happened. And so this started off literally in the middle of the night. All right. And so literally this is the point when Elon Musk sent his tweet. This is where you started to see Bitcoin go down, down, down. And it got all the way, it went all the way starting up at, gosh, it was 56, 57,000, got all the way down to 49. And so it went up again and went down again. So I'm at a point where I'm literally about to, if it gets down to 45, I'm going to probably buy it. So we'll take a look at it. But that's one of the things that happened earlier today. FTFT, that's Future FinTech. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. NXTD went down a little bit. And then anything under 10, I really don't look at. Fuel Cell is basically an EV company. Overall, doing really good. We lost 9%. It's down 7. So basically, it was a little bit over zero, but now it's not. So not a big deal. It'll come back. And Fubo, we're going to talk about that one as well. Big winners for the day. AMC, which is really interesting. So if you've watched those congressional hearings on Reddit and Robinhood and all that, the guy who is Roaring Kitty basically said, look, I'm still bullish on this stock. And he posted a screenshot showing that he basically doubled his allocation of GameStop. And it sent those up. And I think AMC went up as a result as well, because AMC went up 21% today. So I don't know if this one's going to continue to go up, but I would definitely put it on your watch list. And not only that, I would definitely pay particular attention to it. PVAC went up 16%. That's an oil stock. These two stocks, CDE, which is Coeur Mining, and I forget HL stands for something. They're a mining company. They look identical. They have the same ratings, the same pretty much prices. They behave the same way, and they went up almost identically. They're like literally twins. So they do a lot of silver mining. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. And then we saw GameStop go up 10% today. American Airlines went up. Again, that plane crash, the plane engine that fell in the sky only affected United Airlines planes, because they're the only people that had that type of Boeing plane with the Pratt & Whitney engine on it. My brother is a pilot, thinks it's a drone. He thinks it might be a drone. And I thought, could it be a bird? Maybe. He thought it was maybe a drone because it got hit after takeoff and one of the fan blades broke. And usually that means something went into the engine and broke it. So we'll see. But let's take a look and see. American Airlines or United Airlines went up 4% today. So that's kind of what we saw today over the course of 2 days. EBIX went down 40%. It was all today. Bitcoin went down 15. Dogecoin, it was a remnant of 2 days ago. Future FinTech 11, and some other ones. So what I wanted to do is I took a look at 3 stocks that we potentially were going to look at. Oh, first of all, Palantir, what is it? Palantir went down. Oh, did I get this right? Was it Palantir's 20? Yeah, 28. Shouldn't be 18. Palantir it was sitting at about 29, went down. I bought it at 28, and it went down a little bit further down to 27, 28. So it's a little bit below what we bought it for. It's a little bit in the red right here, but only 2%. So it's going to come back. I'm really not worried about it. Happy that I got that stock. All right. So with that being said, I looked at Fubo, and I'm definitely bullish on Fubo. Fubo, first of all, has been heavily shorted, which I really don't understand, because they've been doing a ton of business. They're making tons of money. They're growing through the roof, and their acquisition and user numbers are going up. And yet the stock, when we look at it right here, where's Fubo? We look at the stock. We'll go over the last, look at the last year. It started in October, so let's go 3 months. Oop. So it started up, 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 and then we got right to this big jump right here. In December, went up from $26 a share to 62. Immediately went back down. So maybe there's some manipulation. Who knows? Something went on, but it kind of returned to normal, and then it went up to about 52, and it's kind of been going down, down, down since then. And so today it got all the way down to roughly about $40, and after hours went down to $38.95. So I'm looking at this, and this is just a huge option to buy. So I put in a limit order at 38. If it goes down below 38, I'm not too worried about it. I'll take a look at it overnight and see kind of what's happening. But we're going to put an order of about $2,000 in for that. And again, this is a stock just from fundamentals alone. Plus, it's a stay at home stock. I mean, it literally has everything going for it. Um, I'm probably only regretful that I'm only buying 2 grand. To borrow a quote from Jordan Belfort, the only thing you're going to be mad about is you didn't buy more. And so we'll see what happens. But I think this is a good initial spot to buy more. And so right now, our cost basis on Fubo is 49.01. And so if we get it down at 38, we're basically it's going to cut it in half, call it 44, um, and we're going to start making some pretty good money. Now, Future FinTech, let's take another look at. This is the Chinese cryptocurrency company, and this one's been going. We'll take a look at them for the year. It's been relatively flat, relatively flat. Got down to about right here. It's about $1.68. Jumped up to $8. Went down to $4. Went up to $10 and started to go down. So I started to look at this downtrend, and you can tell it wants to go up. You can just tell it wants to go up, yet it keeps going down. And so we're getting it down to 721. If you remember a few weeks ago, we looked at this and I wanted to buy it right here, 650, and then it went up massively, right? And I was really mad that I didn't get in on it. It went up to $10. So I'm figuring right now it's sitting here at about 720. So I thought, all right, it's time to get in on this one. If it goes down to 7, we're going to buy another 2 grand of it. So that one we have a limit order in on that one as well. And so if we take a look. Is it this one we're looking at? No, that's pre-market. Look at EBIX. We'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah, Future FinTech. Yeah, we can close this one down. So this one's kind of interesting. It says Future FinTech, the leading developer of blockchain tech, which we all know if you've been watching these videos. They do blockchain-based e-commerce. Uh, they they do it as far as a blockchain online shopping platform, which is really the next step for blockchain, as a digital payment system and a cross-border e-commerce platform, which means basically you can buy stuff in Europe from the US. You can buy stuff from Australia in Asia, and you don't have to convert currencies. That's a huge, huge thing. And you have to understand this is a Chinese company, and one of their intermediate goals as far as time horizons go is to take down the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Don't you think for a minute that they're not trying to fund this to further that effort. And that's really what they're doing. All right. So let's take a look here. Early last Friday, they announced that its online shopping platform, Chain Cloud Mall, fair enough, I don't really know much about it, entered a cooperation agreement. Namely, the company will be collaborating with the China Foundation for Consumer Protection, which is basically the Chinese Communist Party, to battle counterfeit products via the responsible brand plan. And the Communist Party's been really cracking down on counterfeit products, particularly coming out of China. Um, so anyway, so one of the things they're doing is they're doing blockchain um, shopping, and that's one of the reasons you're seeing this stock jump. And so for me, when I saw Future FinTech and I see this going down, the big thing that I wondered about was how legit are their numbers. But if they're sitting here working on that particular functionality, this is a stock that we want to take advantage of this drop. So again, sitting at 720, we're going to buy it at 7. Now let's get to EBIX. Okay, EBIX. Take a look at them for the year. Meandering. Then right at the election, went from about $19 up into the 34s. And then we'll take a look. It got all the way up to 58. So we're basically quadrupling our money at this point for the most part. Pretty close to it, tripling at least. Going. And I had missed this one as well. I was kind of kicking myself. Maybe it was around right here, where it went from 46 to 54, and it got right here, sitting at 50. And then the craziness happened. The bottom dropped out. I mean, straight up dropped. Look at how fast this went down. 50 to 25. Got cut in half like this. So what happened? I look at this and I'm like, this is a great buying opportunity. But then you're like, wait a minute, something drops that fast. You want to make sure you understand what the reason is. So when I went in and, that's Future FinTech. Boom, boom, boom. them. All right. So this is Ebix. The auditor resigns over an India gift card inquiry. So I was like, okay. So basically, what happened is every year you have an outside auditor, an external auditor that comes in, and they have to certify the company's books. And what it does, it tells the market that look, everything that they're reporting in their finances is legit. It meets accounting standards, and it can be explained, and it's defendable. So if ever somebody came in and the government came in or somebody sued them, then they're basically saying they're defendable numbers. So they have this outside auditing company called RSM, and in a letter, this is really crazy. They said that resignation, basically, they quit because they were they were unable to, despite repeated inquiries, to obtain sufficient, appropriate audit evidence that allow it to evaluate the business purpose of significant, unusual transactions that occurred in the fourth quarter. So, if you're not an accounting person, and I am a little bit, basically what happened is they got a whole bunch of um, transactions, and we'll look here. There's an amount here that they talked about. Let me see if it's this one or it's no, maybe it's this one. And so they basically said, I just want to make sure, yeah. So I think it was like $40 million or something like that. Um, and they basically said, look, we need to find out what this is for. They're gift cards. And so you got to understand gift cards. So just think about how easily they're able to be used. And going from the US to India. And they have a huge India business for the most part on this. So they kept, hey, we need what is this for? What's the justification? What's the business purpose? That's all the accountant needs. He's not trying to ruffle feathers. He doesn't even think they did anything wrong necessarily. And they just never gave it to him, or they rebuffed him, or they gave him bad info or something. And so finally it got to a point where they're like, look, we need to certify Q4. And it got to a point where the auditor, went up the chain and they realized we're not going to be able to do this. Like there's a serious problem here. And we can't literally put our stamp of approval on these financial statements and say that they're legit. And so they resigned, which is really, really crazy. Um, and so, and like we talked about here, the growth of gift card revenue was driven by the increased use of digital money in India during the pandemic. And the company's renewed to push to grow its payment solution business. Boom, boom, boom. All right. And so Ebix said in a statement that it intends to move as quickly as possible to replace RSM and to complete its 2020 financial audit. If I'm somebody who's an investor in this company and I see the guy says, look, they come out and said, we tried to get it, we tried to get justification, they couldn't give us anything. Look, we can't sit here and be the auditor of record if they're not giving us what we need, because there might be something really crazy going on, and we're not going to put our stamp of approval on it. And then the company comes out and said, yeah, we're going to try to get a new company in here and finish this as soon as possible. It makes people very wary. And then the company said they believe the accounting of its gift card business is consistent with GAAP, that is generally accepted accounting practices requirements. Ebix said the company will communicate with its public shareholders as appropriate, meaning, read between the lines there, we're only going to tell you something if we think you should know. Which, by the way, if you think that's nefarious, it's not nefarious, because I worked for a publicly traded company and we never released anything to the public unless we basically were forced to. So that's no different than any other public company. But for them to come out and actually say it in an unvarnished way, the company will communicate with its public shareholders as appropriate. They basically said it's a need to know basis and you don't need to know. RSM, the auditing company, said it identified a material weakness because management did not design or implement the necessary procedures and controls of the gift or prepayment card revenue transaction cycle sufficient to prevent or detect a material misstatement. So what they're saying is there weren't enough accountability safeguards in place to keep somebody in the company from embezzling money. That's basically what they're saying, or getting cheated out of money. But realistically, they would declare it a loss and then put it on, reclassify it. But when they're saying they can't even complete the audit, they're worried about embezzlement. RSM also said there was a disagreement with respect to the classification of $30 million held in a trust account for the benefit of the company. Now, I can't say what that is because you need to know more about what that trust account is for the company, but you, they need to know. And how are you going to classify something when it goes into this blank account and you don't know what it's used for? How are you going to categorize it, right? So that makes it really, really difficult. EBIC said that it transferred 30 million into a trust account for its outside legal counsel in connection with the pending acquisition. Well, if that's being said, then remember they asked for information and validation for this, and they couldn't justify it. So if RSM says, "Look, we don't know what it's for," like we want to figure out what this 30 million is for, and they're like, "Oh, it's for outside legal." Well, no, it's called you basically set the money aside as a reserve account for legal expenses, right? But that's not, you don't put it in a trust account. It's just very odd. Attorneys will put it in a trust account. The company generally doesn't do that. Um, they also said there were no restrictions on the company's ability to have the cash returned. And in fact, after RSM opined on the issue of classification, which we just talked about, of these funds, the company had the cash returned on February 2nd. So once RSM basically said, "Hey, we don't get why you have this in the account," and the company said, "Well, we have it for legal expenses in the future because we're going to go through an acquisition," and they didn't buy it, they stuck the money back, which makes the auditor even more weird because if you had set this money out aside as money needed for legal counsel for an acquisition, first of all, why does it cost $40 million for legal expenses? Like that's way too much money for legal expenses. Um, but then all of a sudden, when your accountant doesn't buy your explanation, you return it. I mean, that's really, really weird. So RSM said it believed that these funds should be classified on the balance sheet under other current asset. You know what other current asset means? It means I don't know what it is. Which, by the way, if you put that $40 million and you put under other current asset, everybody's current asset just means checking account. So it's other money, liquid money that is not necessarily assigned for anything, and we don't know what to do with it. Everybody's going to question, what the heck is going on here? Because that's usually never. I mean, if you have something in other current asset, it's usually really, really small amounts. They're inconsistent. They're not even. They're inconsequential amounts. Is the word I was trying to think of. Instead of being classified as cash that the company had initially classified it in. And you don't set it as cash when you're setting it aside for legal expenses. So there's just some really hokiness going on here, and I don't know what's going on. So EBIC said there were communications with RSM on this issue, after which the company was prepared to classify the 30 million held in the trust account as a current asset. And well, if you did, then it wouldn't be an issue and they wouldn't have quit. So it doesn't really make sense that that is the case. So um, EBIX considered this issue to be an initial difference of opinion based on the incomplete facts or preliminary information rather than a disagreement under the regulation. And so it's like, okay, well, you can say it's a difference of opinion based on incomplete facts, but when the auditing company comes out that you hired and they're asking for information and you don't provide it to them or you can't provide it to them, it's not incomplete facts. It's something's going on here. Okay. So anyway, I don't know what's going to go with this. I'm really on the fence here because this is a massive drop. And I'll show you, look at for 5 years. It's gone up. It's been high as $90, went down. Pandemic hit right here, dropped down a little bit further, went back up. And then we have this massive drop. So I don't know what we're going to do with this. I mean, realistically, I put that I'm considering buying it, but I put a space here because I'm not sure if I'm going to pull it yet. If I pull the trigger, this is going to be the buy. $29, and that might change a little bit, but 80 shares. But I kind of want to see where this is going. It's $30 and 32 cents at the end of the day, or 24 cents. After hours, it didn't change really thing and all. So I'm going to monitor this thing first thing in the morning and see what happens. And I don't need to get it at 30. It might go down farther. It might go down to 20. It might go down to 25. It might go up to 40. Who knows? But we're going to take a look at it. But if this is the case, this is a massive buying opportunity. But the question is, anytime you have shady accounting, it's something where you really want to tread carefully and you don't really want to jump in. And if you want to get a good example of that, look out for Luckin Coffee, Luckin. It's a Chinese coffee company that's basically trying to rival Starbucks. And they filed for bankruptcy and they're pretty much toast because they had a major accounting scandal, which is really not all that uncommon in China. So, with that being said, we're going to keep a look on it. Overall, we're doing really good. We're almost at 200,000 for total assets on hand. Signet Jewelers is still at 755. We're about to septuple our return, which is just so crazy. Um, we're still looking at Bitcoin potentially. Other leaders in the pack that we're looking on here, and at this point, we're only looking at 200 or above. We have Houghton Mifflin, which is crazy. That was in the red for a while. Now it's at 224. We've more than tripled what we've done here. Every, that's our, oh, Every is our Vegas ATM company, which is just money in the bank, literally. Caesars Entertainment, we've more than quadrupled. We're about to quintuple. Crestwood Equity is our oil REIT, which is more than quadrupled. Bremer Resorts is more than tripled, and AMC is basically tripled at this point, and that's not even counting what we've cashed out already. Stuff in the red, take a look at here. Fuel cell, that's our EV ones. This. There's no way I'm selling this. This sucker's going to be one of our best producers. Future FinTech, we talked about. Fubo, we talked about. We're going to lower our cost basis on those if those go through. GameStop, the main guy between all the Reddit stuff is saying he's bullish on it, so we'll see what happens with this. But this went from negative 50% to negative 40 today. Immunovant, which is our biotech company, I'm just going to let this ride, period. We're not decreasing or increasing this at all. And then Palantir we just bought. So those are the only ones in the red. Overall, we're sitting here after margin with a net of $153,500, total gain of about 120,000. We've more than quadrupled our money on our way to quintupling our money. And overall, what we're shooting for, we're pacing for, is still around 295,000. So if you haven't got in, get in. You've seen some great opportunities today, but we want to tread carefully with EBIX. So I'm looking at overall. I'm looking at Fubo, Future FinTech. I'm going to keep my eye on EBIX. Target Hospitality is, we're going to see if it gets down to 175. I'm holding firm on that. And then we're also looking at Bitcoin as well. If it drops down to 45, your boy here is buying it because this sucker. The thing about Bitcoin you have to understand is this: it's the only thing in the world that behaves this way. Think of a division equation where you have x over x, a numerator and a denominator. If something's worth $10, it basically has $10 for whatever you get for the $10. So let's just say a cheeseburger. Let's say you spend $10 for a cheeseburger. You give $10 of value for one cheeseburger. Well, that's fine. And maybe you're in that, it's you're at a football game and they ran out of food and it's the only cheeseburger there, and you're willing to spend $10 for a cheeseburger because it's the only thing you have available. So you're willing to overspend for it. So the value goes up because of scarcity. Well, what happens if all of a sudden, you're selling that $10 cheeseburger and a guy rolls up with 500 cheeseburgers? Well, nobody's going to pay you for a $10 for a cheeseburger anymore because the supply went massively up. And that supply is your denominator. And so basically, let's say you look at the US dollar. Let's say a dollar is worth a dollar, right? It's worth $1 for every dollar. Well, every time the US basically creates money out of thin air, then it increases the denominator. So instead of 1 over, let's say 10 over 10, it's 10 over 15. And now it's not worth 1, but it's worth 67 cents. And the value of your dollar goes down. So if you're always familiar with this, I don't want to bore you, but the Bitcoin thing is really important. And if you're not familiar with how this works, it's an important thing to consider. Gold is interesting because there's generally not a lot more there. So when people have interest in gold, the idea is you have the numerator up top is based on the number of people that want to buy it. So if you have 100 people that want to buy gold and there's only so much gold, you have the interest over the supply, and that determines the price. Well, if you have 200, if you have twice as many people that want to buy gold and you have the same supply, then generally, not exactly, but generally, the price will double. Or if nothing, at the very, very least, the price is going to increase. But as they find gold, let's say there's this brand new hoard of gold they found, and it's like doubles the amount of available gold known in the world. Well, now you've increased the denominator. So instead of 10 over 10, it's now 10 over 20. And so the price goes down 10 over 20. It's now worth 50 cents, right? Well, Bitcoin's different because there's only 21 million Bitcoins that can ever be mined at all. And the computer code on it is you cannot increase the supply. So it is 10 over 10, and the 10 will never change. And so as retail investors went in and started increasing their buying and interest in it, it was 13 over 10, 14 over 10, 17 over 10, 18 over 10. Now that one is now 1.8, right? So instead of $10, it's now worth $15, right? So, but then the institutional investors went in, and then it went 10 over 10, 20 over 10, 100 over 10, 500 over 10, and the value started exploding. And the thing about it is the denominator cannot increase. And so the only thing that impacts Bitcoin is whether overall the population as a whole is going to be increasingly or decreasingly interested in Bitcoin. In other words, does it have a utility? Does it do anything? Is it worth anything? Is there any value to it inherently? If it's just like something that is just like, okay, a stamp, for example, a really rare stamp, it doesn't really have any utility. So its value can fluctuate. It can go down to zero. It can go to $1 billion. Nobody knows. But the blockchain technology involved with Bitcoin is something that's different. It's unlike any other currency, any other cryptocurrency, and that's why you see the value go up. So it's going to go. It's not a question of will Bitcoin go to 100,000. It's going to go to 100,000. Mathematically, it's going there. Okay. Will it go to 250? It's pretty much a mathematical certainty it's going to do that. So for me, I definitely want to buy it. I bought it on the way up a little bit, not in this big route that's been going on. But if it takes a big enough dip, I'm going to get into it because that X as a denominator is impossible. It's mathematically impossible, and it's programmed never to change. So with that being said, get into it. One last bit. I just took my LSAT test. Unbelievably hard. It's for law school. And it sucks because the next 3 weeks I won't find out what my score is. And there's two schools here in San Diego, so it's the matter of how well I did on that test. Is it good enough to get into one of those two schools? Hopefully, at least one of it's good enough because classes start in September. Worst case scenario, if I'm 0 for 2, man, I got to wait a whole another year, and study for the test again, and you know what have you. But most people take a year to study for that test. Your boy here had all of 2 months to do it. So we'll see what happens. But that being said, that's what all this is for. This is paying for law school, guys. So what's your goal? What's the big thing you want? Are you looking to pay back your student loans? Are you looking to buy a house? Are you looking to move? What are you looking to do? But having that goal set aside is really important because it keeps you focused, makes you understand how to make good decisions that are going to make more money, and avoid the ones that are going to detract you from your goal. So with that being said, keep an eye on the market. Oh, a couple things here real quick. The market's looking up a little bit today. We're going to pay attention to that later on. And then what's really interesting, and we looked at COVID. We're way over the second wave. We're not going to go into that today. Hospitalizations are plummeting way down. But I was looking at this death tracker, and I didn't realize that you could sort this by age. And so I decided, look at this. There's only 2 people that were under 20 that died of COVID. We know that because we looked at that a little bit earlier. Both of them were early this year, and both of them had underlying medical conditions. So this was not like a 19-year-old healthy person and a 10-year-old who's playing soccer and baseball and all that. They had something going on. So I don't know if they had diabetes. It had to be diabetes A. It's hard to believe they would have some like massive obesity or some crazy like hypertension or whatever. You think it has to be type 1 diabetes. 21 years old, the same thing. Um, in all of them, we have one weird one here. We had a 23-year-old with no underlying health conditions. I'm guessing maybe that's one of the ones where they said she had a gunshot wound, and happened to have COVID in the autopsy. But then we look at the other age. Look at this: 105, 104. I mean, these people, I can't believe they live that long. 105, 4, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. All these people over 100 years old. I mean, like, when we look at the death count, like almost everybody on here has been dying, has been like unbelievably old. So with that being said, oh, one last thing. Sorry, this is finally the one last thing, and I wrote this down. I was watching one of the business channels today, and one of the things this guy said today, which I immediately thought of, and I wanted to get this in on the video today, when they were talking about like COVID and getting back and things opening up, he said this phrase. He goes, "This is when the demand recovery begins." And I thought, I've never heard that term. That's really interesting. Demand recovery beginning is basically when everything's starting to open up, but it's a way that economists speak. And when the guys are already starting to coin the term demand recovery, you know things are about to get started. So get your stocks in. Don't sit here and half step it. Whatever amount you invest, you can make back. But if you invest half of it, you're going to be you're going to be giving money to somebody else. So make sure you get your stocks in. If you have questions on what ones you want to do, reach out to me. We're going to make some serious money, especially up to and including when that congressional bill passes. So with that being said, I'll see you tomorrow. To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.